from a licensed accredited university, like one of the like standard public universities, run. Okay, hi everybody. Thanks for coming back if you've been here before, or hi, welcome if you're new. My name's Mickey, I'm a therapist, and we talk about therapist-y things on this channel. Today, we are talking about Girl Defined, specifically Bethy from Girl Defined, because they posted something on there, or she posted something on her Instagram that caught my attention. And so I did some digging, and it's kind of fucked up. So we're going to talk about it. We're going to unpack some shit. I have strong thoughts and feelings, so let's just get into it. First and foremost, I want to be super clear. I know that Bethany has talked about how she is in the middle of walking through some really traumatic shit right now in regards to trying to get pregnant and infertility and those types of things. And so I do want to be sensitive to like labeling anyone's personhood here. Generally, we try to be sensitive to not labeling anyone as a person in a particular way, but I do feel compelled to call out this behavior because this is like just super fucking concerning and something that needs to be talked about, in my opinion. For those of you who don't know, Girl Defined is made up of Bethy and Kristen. They each have their own respective Instagram. Kristen is not really on hers, but Bethy is really doing the most on her own personal, like not private, but like personal Instagram, posting reels and just like whatever. It's just like general fuckery. But this caught my attention because she posted a reel talking about how she has started attending biblical counseling. So yeah, that got an eyebrow raise from me because I was curious if she was going to actual counseling or if she was doing what it turns out that she's doing, which is not real counseling. She promoted a service specifically. She's promoting a service called the Association of Certified Biblical Counselors. And so when you look at their Instagram page, it looks, like a fish. They have a little logo. It's got a little tree. Looks like whatever, the shit that other therapists post on Instagram, right? Seems pretty above board as far as therapy Instagrams are concerned. But I looked at their website, I did some more digging, and as it turns out, this institution is just built on a fucking pile of lies. None of the fucking people who work for this institution are educated in psychotherapy or are like licensed professional counseling in any capacity. We are going to talk about why this is problematic, but there's like some stuff for us to talk about first. First and foremost, I can fucking hear it now. I know that there are for sure going to be people in the comments saying like, well, at least she's finally going to counseling. Like, you're being mean. No. Listen, no. I understand, and I thought the same thing. Initially, I was like, wow, good for her. Like, that's really nice. She actually says some very kind things in the caption about how going to counseling is not a weakness, and it's not something to be embarrassed of, and like, this is good, and blah, 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 whatever. Like, great. I'm happy that she said that. However, I'm super fucking disappointed that the service she chose to promote is something like this, because not all counseling is created equal, or like therapy is created equal, and it's honestly, I think, more harmful for people, especially for their first interaction with mental health services or counseling, to be traumatizing or particularly negative than it is for someone to not go at all. And this is very much that. The service that she's promoting very much has the capacity to cause people real harm and long-lasting harm, and to potentially be like the deciding factor for whether people write off mental health care altogether. And from what I have uncovered and like is just like freely available, by the way, this isn't like fucking investigative work. Like, I'm not up my own ass thinking I'm an investigative journalist. Like, this is just the shit that's on their fucking website. The practices that they use are so far removed from what is considered industry standard for typical psychotherapy that like the potential for harm here is fucking off the charts. I want to be clear. We're going to talk about this later, but it is entirely possible for someone to be a real therapist or a real counselor and to also be religious and to provide services that are geared towards religious people and to incorporate the use of the Bible or Christianity or whatever religion of choice, suits the client. This is very much a thing. This is very much possible. It's entirely possible for therapists who are licensed, credentialed, educated to be doing this ethically, appropriately, with all of their due diligence and mindfulness for the appropriate ethics and blah, 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 what the fuck ever. This, however, is not fucking that. On their website, it's very prominently advertised that you can become a certified biblical counselor. And here's the kicker. In order to become a certified biblical counselor for ACBC, all you have to do is sign up for an online training that is 30 hours in total. It's 15 weeks long. So that's about 2 hours a week, by the way. And it costs $100. me wrong, okay? I don't want to be the person who gatekeeps my profession or says that like only certain people should be allowed. I certainly don't think that college education should be as expensive as it is. That's a systemic issue. And like y'all know that I don't, have a high opinion of how difficult it is to go to college and those types of things. However, the field of mental health there's a barrier to entry there for a reason. The barrier to entry exists for the purpose of creating a sense of safety, and also for preserving the reputation of the field. And so for people to call themselves counselors when you essentially like fucked off on your computer for 2 hours on the weekend for 4 months after paying $100 is not the fucking same. I actually did the math because I'm a petty bitch. I did the math. In order to get the 2 degrees that I have and the license that I am currently maintaining, it cost me around $85,000 fucking dollars. It took me about 5 years to get both those degrees, which actually is an accelerated timeline because I, for my master's degree, did an accelerated course where I was in school for 1 calendar year instead of the two years with semester breaks and stuff like that. And so that's faster than most people. That's about as fast as you can get that degree. And that also doesn't include the cost of maintaining my current license. That doesn't include the cost of paying for my license in the first place, of sitting for the licensure exam the first time that I took it, for the CEUs that I take, that I am responsible for taking every 2 years. The barrier to entry to becoming a licensed mental health professional is substantial. And again, I don't want to be the person who thinks or says that I think only independently wealthy people should be able to become therapists, because that's not true and I don't believe that. However, it is very important that the field have barriers to entry and qualifications that you have to meet in order to treat other people, because we as mental health professionals are touching people's lives. We're fucking around inside of their goddamn fucking brains, and that's super fucking dangerous if you're doing it inappropriately or you're not doing it with the appropriate care and respect for what you're actually fucking doing. You can ruin people's lives. Like in an instant, you can ruin someone's fucking life. And that's a responsibility that's not lost on mental health professionals who are doing the work, who are making the conscious effort. Usually, some mental health professionals are, but usually if things go the way that they're supposed to, based on all of the barriers to entry that exist, that's not a responsibility that's lost on mental health professionals. And we're routinely reminded of how tenuous and scary and heavy the work that we're doing is. These people who are paying $100 to do some fuck all course on the internet are not doing their due diligence to make sure that they're conducting themselves with the safety and the respect that this work requires. The other thing that I wanted to talk about here is that the barriers to entry for the field don't just exist for the purpose of like fueling our own ego or making ourselves feel special. I know that there are very much therapists like that, and I do want to validate how frustrating and aggravating it is to have therapists who are like up their own butts thinking that they're like God's gift to psychotherapy. Fuck those people. But the step stools, I guess, that you have to meet in order to become a licensed mental health professional exist for the purpose of creating a sense of safety for our clients and also for preserving the reputation of the field. When we talk about creating safety for clients, what I mean is that there are lots of different ways to become a mental health professional. You can be a licensed like social worker, so you can be an LMSW, which is what I am. It's a licensed master social worker, or you can be a licensed clinical social worker, which is the licensure that I'm like working towards right now. You can be a licensed professional counselor. You can be a licensed mental health counselor. You can be a substance abuse counselor. You can be a psychologist, you can be a psychiatrist, you can be a licensed marriage and family therapist. There's lots of different degree programs available to a person to become a professional in mental health, but the unifying factor here is that there is an agreed upon curriculum that's decided and regularly revisited and robustly tested by usually a national oversight board. So for social work, it's the Council on Social Work Education. In order to get a degree in social work and call yourself a fucking social worker, you have to go to a university that is accredited by the CSWE so that you can get a degree in social work and then graduate and then get a license that's been approved by sitting for an exam that's been approved by the Association of Social Work Boards. You can't just call yourself a social worker, especially a clinical social worker, just because. All of these steps and these like checks and balances exist so that if you're a social worker in Kansas, or you're a social worker in Arizona, or you're a social worker in Alaska, there is a unified curriculum that we all have agreed is the minimum standard of care that you are required to abide by. There's also a national code of ethics. So like for psychologists, there's like the APA. For social workers, there's the social work code of ethics. We all agree that this is supposed to be guiding our practice overall. And again, it's like a unifying factor among the profession. It's not something that just one company who has one Instagram page can decide to fucking play willy-nilly with. They're being held accountable by the profession, by the field, by all of the people who have a stake in the reputation of this. And so this helps to hold people accountable because everybody here has skin in the game to make sure that we're all doing the right things. The reason that that reputation is important is because when someone who is a licensed clinical social worker, for example, behaves in a way that's unethical or is unbecoming of the profession in the field, that social worker can be held accountable based on the nationally agreed upon standards, or based on their state licensure board also. And that social worker is then sort of like expunged from the fucking field. The profession has decided if you don't meet these qualifications, get the fuck out. You're not fucking welcome here. And so you can't call yourself one of it. Like quite literally, it's the like, you can't sit with us energy. And so you have like a vested interest in abiding by the rules to make sure that your practice meets the national standards. Otherwise, you can't do the job that you're doing. When people like the fucking ACBC call themselves counselors, they're banking on using the reputation of people who are licensed professional counselors, except that they're not holding themselves to the standard of actual fucking counselors who have gone to school, gotten the degrees, done the work, have a license, maintain the license, and are being held accountable nationally by like all of these accredited and licensed and credentialed institutions. And so when somebody at ACBC who is a counselor fucks off and does something that's super inappropriate or super harmful to someone, what are you gonna do? Oh well, there's no one to complain to. There's no like committee that can expunge this person from the profession and say like, get the fuck out of here. You can't sit with us. You can't be one of us. These people get to just kind of fuck off and do whatever they want, really, because there's no oversight committee. And they can also take your fucking money and then like, again, bank on the reputation of licensed professional counselors without having to do the work that licensed professional counselors have to do. The issue that I take with this is that obviously this is fucking harmful, this is very dangerous, this is super inappropriate and irresponsible, but also this degrades the reputation of the profession, because when somebody is on the receiving end of negligent and harmful and traumatizing care from an ACBC counselor, they might not know the difference. Somebody who, especially who is a first-time consumer of therapy, they might not understand that this is not how counseling or therapy is supposed to work. And so their experience then is that all mental health counselors or all mental health professionals are fucking bad people. Fuck that fucking profession, and I don't trust them anymore. And so it like poisons the reputation of the mental health profession that is actually very carefully and, intentionally regulated with all of these checks and balances and all these rules and all these statutes and all these things, because these people are behaving in a way that's irresponsible and like they don't really give a fuck. They're like using legal loopholes to kind of get around, doing the fucking due diligence that they're supposed to be doing. Basically, the profession who all is made up of all these people who did do their due diligence to be responsible, to be safe, to do the right thing. They're the people who have the negative consequences and who reap the negative outcome of ACBC's fucking shitty behavior, and so do the fucking clients. These are people who like deserve and need very real help, and instead of getting that from a counselor who is equipped and educated and ready to deal with those things, ACBC's like, it's fine. You could like take a course, like maybe you could take a couple if you really wanted to be like an overachiever, but generally like just keep thumping the Bible and keep feeding these people more religious rhetoric and bullshit and like hope that fixes it. And I want to be super clear, this issue with people distrusting mental health professionals is not something that the field really needs any fucking help with in the first place. Regular therapists have done a fucking bad enough job as it is of being untrustworthy and scary and unapproachable to like your average therapy consumer. And so we don't need any fucking help from bad actors like ACBC poisoning the fucking well and making people perceive us in even worse of a light than we've already put ourselves in. That's the reason that I made this channel in the first place, is because it's not lost on me that people don't have positive experiences with mental health professionals and perceive the field in this way that, in my opinion, is inaccurate, especially with all of the newly educated and younger people who are becoming a part of the profession all of the time. But this type of stuff only serves to make the problem worse and only serves to further the divide between the professionals who are behaving in a way that's ethical and safe and the consumers who really do want and need the help. These people have an even harder time reaching each other because of people like ACBC. It sounds like I'm saying ACBC. They couldn't pick a fucking better name.
That should have been their logo.
Little lightning bolt.
A little lightning bolt.
And this is the other thing about their institution that really pushes my fucking buttons, is that they are capitalizing on their reputation of mental health counselors and the mental health field by calling themselves counselors. I think probably not out of ignorance. I don't know that this is genuine misguided, a oopsie poopsie. I think it's probably on purpose. And they're doing this for the purpose of evangelizing and proselytizing to people. Because don't misunderstand, if you're a regular religious person who just so happened to see Bethy's Instagram post and be like, I've been thinking about going to counseling, and you get on their website and you beep, boop, 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 you find a person, right? And you guys just so happen to have different religious views about the role of a woman in the household, for example. Don't misunderstand. I'm very doubtful that religious counselor would say I can just turn the other cheek. It's okay. We can agree to disagree about our religious beliefs, because at the end of the day, we're both Christians. And, ultimately, as long as my work is helpful to you, as long as you're getting what you came for out of these services, that's all that matters. I'm willing to suspend my personal beliefs or what I think is right about Christianity or religion or the Bible so that I can be of service to you. Wrong. Very, very doubtful that that's what's going to happen, because on their website, these people are so fucking dumb. On their website, they have a whole section of blog posts that are written by actual counselors who are being held up as the gold standard for what an ACBC counselor is supposed to be. One of which is written by a person who is instructing other counselors about how to interact with counselees in terms of how to force them to police their own thoughts more effectively, and how to flee from sin in their own thoughts. Very Bethy and Kristen, mental compulsions kind of an energy. And the instruction given in that post is not at all centered around the idea of just creating a general improvement in mood or functionality or, overall well-being, which is generally the goal in traditional, normal fucking psychotherapy. The goal is in getting the counselee to be the appropriate amount of religious, or to abide by whatever religious values this counselor has deemed the correct biblical, fundamental way that you should be. So don't misunderstand. This isn't a service that's just a safe place for Christians, and if you guys agree to disagree about things, no. If your counselor uncovers that you have views that are contrary to the Bible, it's entirely likely that they may very well hold you to task and poke and prod you until you're willing to say, okay, you're right, I will change my life or my views to suit what you think is the correct way that I should be interpreting the Bible. The goal here is not to create an overall sense of well-being or improvement in mood or functionality, as far as I can tell, based on the material that they've provided about what a good counselor is supposed to look like. It seems very much like this service is intended to evangelize new people into the religion, and also to prevent people who have doubts about the religion from leaving. It seems like it serves as a filter for anyone who has potential doubts about religion and fundamentalism especially, so that you can catch these people and shame them and make them feel bad about that, and then push them back down into their place and keep them in the religion. It comes off as very manipulative and very abusive, and a very inappropriate use of power, by the way, which is another thing that therapists and mental health professionals are well educated in, because we're supposed to be very aware of the power dynamic that exists in the relationship between professional and client. We're not supposed to use that to our own benefit, to serve our own purposes. We're supposed to be willing to leave our own wants and needs at the door so that we don't fucking hurt people, because ultimately at the end of the day, it's not about us, and it doesn't fucking matter what we want or need. It's about our client and how we can best serve them. But I don't think ACBC really cares about all of that, because they wouldn't know, because they didn't fucking get any of the fucking education about how to do that. So before we wrap up here, I want to really drive home the point that the reason I take issue with this is because the potential harm that this has to cause, the potential that this has to cause harm is off the fucking charts. I don't know, those words didn't want to come out of my mouth. I don't know, my brain is melting. It doesn't matter. This service generally has the potential to cause people a lot of harm, and it's frustrating to me that especially like vulnerable, very in need people might accidentally get sucked into a service like this without really understanding what it is, because they're not very upfront or forthcoming about what you're walking into, or like what the counseling style is going to look like from the client perspective until you're in the shit. That these people might find themselves on the receiving end of these services and be very traumatized, very hurt, very frustrated by this, and again, like potentially write off mental health services altogether, or mental health care altogether, like fucking forever. And this is not uncommon, by the way. That's another thing that I wanted to talk about. This is an objection that I hear in my clinical work, like in my own anecdotal experience, all the fucking time. All the time I hear this from people who are my own clients, or people who want like family, friends, loved ones, partners to go to therapy, but they had a bad experience. And so they say, never again. I'm never fucking going back there because that was traumatizing, or this person forced me to go and I hated it. Or, you know, I went out of good faith to like help a relationship with this person and it was a fucking disaster, and so I'm never going back. And this is very much that energy, and it's frustrating to me that this is contributing to that problem, because it's entirely possible for people to find therapy and mental health services that are like affordable, accessible, reachable, and also that like resonate with you on a personal level, regardless of whether you're religious or not, which is another thing that I wanted to address here. I don't take any fucking issue. Religiously oriented counseling, that's a valid thing that lots of people utilize. We talked about this earlier. I don't take any issue with like Bethy or Kristen or any of their fundamentalist ilk wanting to find a therapist who like rah Christianity, like go off. Like they're still people who are worthy of love and belonging and deserve to feel at peace. And quite honestly, I think would probably benefit a lot from having space to unpack whatever haunted house bullshit is going on over there. And I don't want to give anyone the impression that I think that counseling coupled with religion, as long as everyone is a consenting party, is a bad thing, because it's not. It's entirely possible. It can be very useful, actually. It's something that I've fucking helped clients work through, because I have no issue with that. The issue is that the people who are providing these counseling services are not educated to do so, and the religion on top of it, I think, just adds an extra level of abuse and potential for harm here. And so if you are a person who's religious and you're like maybe, you know, nervous about seeing a secular counselor, or you just think that seeing a religious counselor would be helpful to you, there are always links in my description, and especially Psychology Today, I know in particular, has a filter that you can use to find a therapist that will use a Christian approach with you and that will incorporate the Bible in your therapy services. And these are things that you can also talk about in a free 15-minute consultation. Any therapist worth their weight in salt will have a free 15-minute conversation with you, either over the phone or over video, where you can ask and say, hey, this is very important to me. My faith is very important to me. It's really, really important that I be able to incorporate this in therapy. Is that something that you're okay with? And if they're not, fuck them. Find a different one. There are plenty of them. This is a common thing, and it's perfectly accessible. And the insinuation that ACPC is the only place that's safe for Christians to get counseling is disingenuous and also harmful. It just really fucking pushes my buttons that Bethy especially would promote something like this. Like, it's not surprising to me, but it continues to be disappointing to me, especially because like some, you know, middle-aged mom who's having a hard time, or is like in the middle of postpartum depression, or is like overwhelmed, might see this and think that this is a great idea and then go, only to be like shamed into oblivion and treated like shit, and to leave more traumatized and more in need of services than when they started. And quite honestly, I don't know that Bethy really cares. I don't know that she really cares or does the reflection that is necessary for like an influencer to be doing about the responsibility that she has in promoting something like this. I don't think that she really cares. And quite honestly, I could very much see this being the attitude of like, well, you know, if we like save a few souls, then like it's a worthwhile casualty. And that pushes my fucking buttons, because I'm not okay with people, human beings in their real fucking lives and their real fucking emotions, being treated in this like very lax, like blase sort of way, like a who cares if you have a bad time there. Especially as a person with a platform, it's not lost on me how much responsibility I have to be mindful about the things that I promote and share with the audience that I've created here. And it really fucking bothers me when influencers and creators don't do their due diligence to make sure that the things that they're sharing with their own fucking audience, who they claim to fucking care about, are safe and are like an okay thing to be promoting to people. So like generally, I just really want to caution people against things like this, and especially services that use like psychology-y buzzwords but don't have any like real meat and potatoes to back that up. And especially like if you find yourself with a service like this or wanting to use a service like this, please at least go and look at the like about section and look at the like our team section. If nobody on their staff has a degree in counseling or mental health or social work, or is like an LMFT or an LPC, or like has the alphabet soup at the end of their name from a licensed accredited university, like one of the like standard public universities, run. Get the fuck out of there, because this has the potential to be very, very harmful to people. And it's also very possible for you to get meaningful and useful and helpful services from somewhere else. Like I said, there's always links in my description, so I'd highly encourage you to use those. So that's that. I've like worn myself out now. My voice is all hoarse. I know that this can probably come off as kind of severe and a little bit aggressive, and I get that. I understand that this can be kind of a lot for some people, but again, I want to be super clear. I don't take issue with the fact that Kristen and Bethy and Girl Defined, or like any of the fundies really, are religious. It's the fact that they're leveraging this religion and this like perceived afterlife as a way to manipulate people and to coerce people into doing things that they deem are right or moral or correct, because that's an abuse of power and it's inherently manipulative and abusive. And so like, especially with things like this, like you very much have the potential to be ruining people's lives. And like, I don't fucking like it, pushes my fucking buttons. It's the opposite of the fucking work that I'm trying to do, both here on the internet and personally, like privately in my own, mental health practice. And so just like, 0 out of 10, don't fucking recommend. I'm gonna link a playlist up here, both with other fundamentalist content if you guys want to watch that, but also with some nice fun eye bleach content in case this was a little heavy for you, because I know this was a little heavy for me. So if you made it this far and you like the video, subscribe to the channel. We talk about fundamentalism about once a month or so. We also have a Patreon, and so if you want to become a patron and join our little fam over there, we're having so much fun. It tends to be a little lighter than this, and so I would love to have you. But otherwise, share the video to help the channel grow and to help each other grow, and I will see you guys next Saturday. Okay, bye.
Perfect. That's good.